Well, Gonzaga had 7 players participate in NBA Summer League this year, and we're going to break down each performance and what it means for these Zags going forward on today's episode of Locked On Zags.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. I am joined today by the great Theo Lawson of the Spokesman-Review. Theo was on the ground in Las Vegas the last couple of weeks, checking out NBA Summer League and speaking with each of the 7 Zags who participated this year. We're going to go through all of them today, starting with the 3 new professionals and starting with the guy who continued Gonzaga's streak of being players selected in the first round of the NBA draft, Julian Strawther, a guy who looked like he might fall into the second round. It was kind of unclear if we were going to have another first round pick. Of course, Strawther goes to the defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets and definitely looked like a guy who's going to contribute to this team right away, especially his last few games in Las Vegas really kind of stepped up. Of course, we as Zag fans know that Strawther loves to play basketball in Las Vegas, so not surprised to see him have a couple 20-point games there to end his time with the Nuggets in Summer League. What did you think about his performance, Theo, and kind of what that might mean for him in a role with the defending champions?
Yeah, I think Julian started well. He had a pretty strong performance in the opener at Thomas and Mack Center, which was obviously a pretty exciting moment for him. Obviously ended his college career in Vegas, started his NBA career in Vegas, a place where he's played so many meaningful games from high school to the WCC tournament to the Duke and UCLA games over Thanksgiving break a couple of years back. So it was a pretty big moment for him. I talked to his family. They were pretty nervous, and his sister even said they might have been more teary-eyed before that game than they were on draft night when he got picked up. He was having a draft party nearby in Red Rock Casino in Vegas. So a lot of friends and family saw him get drafted. Then a lot of friends and family saw him play his first game in Vegas. And then you could tell after they announced his name, everyone kind of seemed to know who Julian Strawther was in that crowd. It's a Vegas-based crowd. People come from all over for Summer League, but most people are from Vegas. So he's kind of a hero in that town. Obviously, a lot of good basketball products come out of Vegas, but people seem to know Julian. And he played pretty well. Missed his first few shots, kind of got into a rhythm, and then settled in and kind of did what Julian does. A few floaters, the classics, the Strawther floater that I think is going to be a really nice tool for him in the NBA as it was at Gonzaga, and obviously played pretty well that first game. Struggled a little bit the second game. Didn't shoot the 3 very well. I want to say he was something around 2 of 13 from the field. Didn't make many threes, but also had a few nice defensive plays. Had one great defensive highlight, a block, kind of pinned a guy at the rim. So I think that's going to be the key for Julian in the NBA. He's not going to be able to shoot 4 or 5 from 3 every game. He's going to have to play defense, have to rebound. He has the ability to rebound well. We saw that at Gonzaga. So I think it's more of an effort thing for him. Maybe if you're not getting it done on the offensive end of the court, make sure you make plays on the other end, defend, rebound. Block a few shots if you can. He does kind of have that athleticism that is a little sneaky, a little underrated. So I think he played well, and then obviously closed with a few 20-point games and kind of found his shooting stroke.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not an NBA draft analyst. I'm not pretending to be an NBA draft analyst, but what I see so often is people will pick a player who is 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", who shoots the 3 well, and will automatically label them like, oh, that guy's going to be a 3-and-D wing at the next level. And it's like, well, there is a second element to that. Like, you have to be able to prove yourself on both ends of the floor. For Julian Strawther, the offense is there. The floater is there. The 3-point shooting is there. I don't think there's really any doubt, at least not in my mind, that he can contribute at the offensive level in the NBA right away. But he's got to be able to bring it on the other end of the floor. And you look at the Denver Nuggets, I mean, they have a lot of guys, young players who kind of play a similar position to him. To me, that's the biggest hinge for his ability to stick in the NBA, is to be able to show that he can go up at the rim and block shots. I mean, that's not necessarily the biggest skill that he needs to demonstrate, but some kind of a bit more consistency on the defensive end of the floor is the difference between him being a guy who gets a second contract in the NBA or not. At least that's kind of how I see it with him right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, also talking to a few of the Nuggets players, we got to talk to Peyton Watson, who's I believe a second year guy from UCLA. He talked about Julian, and he kind of told me, he can play the 2 or the 3 in the NBA, so he's going to be kind of a matchup nightmare for either position, just with his size. If he's playing the 2 matchup against another 2, it's likely he has the size advantage, and he also has the athleticism to kind of match up against most 3s and have success there too. So it's going to be interesting to see where he plays in Denver if he can kind of make that rotation. Obviously, it's kind of a blessing to get drafted by the reigning champs, but then you also have to make that roster, which is going to be hard for anyone with Denver. Bringing most of their guys back. Like, obviously, a few of those guys left, and that's going to happen with any championship team. You can't keep the whole roster usually because some guys are going to be looking for bigger contracts. Yeah. But I think he does have a good chance to stick, and obviously they showed what they thought of him by picking him in the first round.
Drew Timme next. I want to talk about Drew, of course, the Gonzaga's all-time leading scorer, one of the most prolific college basketball players of all time. But as we kind of knew might happen, the transition from college to the NBA is not going to be as smooth for Drew. He doesn't have the skill sets that are valued in the modern NBA as much as, they might have been 30 years ago for somebody like Drew, who 30 years ago wouldn't have spent 4 years at Gonzaga, almost certainly. He goes to Milwaukee after not getting selected in the draft. We don't really see a ton of him during summer league. He plays a little less than 10 minutes per game, just doesn't get a lot of opportunities. I know it was frustrating for a lot of Zag fans to not get a chance to see him and kind of wondered why Milwaukee ended up being the place. And I know you got a chance to speak to him and kind of talk to him about why he ended up choosing to sign with Milwaukee. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so Drew had about five or six teams reach out to him kind of right after the draft, immediately after the draft. He said Milwaukee reached out within 10 minutes after the draft, spoke to his agent, and then Drew got the call from his agent, actually from the general manager of the Milwaukee Bucks about maybe 20, 30 minutes later. And so he had about 5-6 offers. He didn't tell me which were the offers he had. I obviously didn't press him for that information, but Milwaukee was the best organization of those 5 or 6 that he had to choose from. Obviously, Milwaukee is a team that's had a lot of success with this kind of this era, Giannis and Chris Middleton, so Brook Lopez. So I think he just kind of found it a good situation to be in. Actually, interestingly enough, the Milwaukee Bucks new head coach Adrian Griffin was also coaching their summer league team. So he'd get a lot of face time and interaction with Adrian Griffin. Normally, it's usually a assistant coach or a G League coach, assistant G League coach, who gets the chance to work with the summer league team, but that wasn't the case for Milwaukee. And actually, kind of the same thing with Philadelphia. Nick Nurse, who's now coaching the Sixers, coached the Sixers summer league team in Salt Lake. So I know we'll talk about Philip Petrusev, but that was kind of an advantage for him to get some time with Nick Nurse. So I think that was one of the big things for Drew is having someone like Adrian Griffin coaching the team. He'd be able to make a good impression, and obviously didn't get a lot of minutes in Vegas, but when he did, I felt like he was effective, kind of the same old Drew that we're used to, efficient. Had a few missed opportunities on the defensive side of the ball, which is also something we're maybe a little bit used to with Drew Timme. But he's going to have to probably play a little bit more defense at the next level to kind of make a rotation or lock down a 2-way contract. But talking to Adrian Griffin after his first game, he said Drew's kind of cut from my cloth. We're kind of gritty. We're not the most athletic guys, but we have good IQs on the court. We know how to get things done. We know how to play the game. He said you can't speed him up. He's calm. He's cool under pressure. So having that kind of praise from the new head coach of the Bucks is obviously a good sign. It doesn't mean he's going to necessarily make the roster or even make a 2-way contract or earn a 2-way contract. So at the very least, I think he kind of showed in very, very small glimpses what he can do in the NBA, and I still think he's going to be someone who, if you put him on the court in a second rotation, he's going to be able to find a way to score the ball against other second rotation players. So I'm not really sure what the future holds. They obviously haven't signed him to a 2-way contract yet. He's still on that Exhibit 10. But I have no doubt that at least for a couple of years, Drew Timme will find a way to make NBA G League rosters or get a 2-way contract and then have the opportunity from there to kind of show what he can do.
Drew's not the only former Zag who's got an Exhibit 10 contract, who's fighting to try to get onto a 2-way deal. The other one, of course, Malachi Smith, who joined the Portland Trail Blazers on that Exhibit 10 deal and really never got much of an opportunity, even when Scoot Henderson went down with an injury for the Blazers. And we just we're hoping to see a little bit more of Malachi Smith and frankly Drew Timme. But with Malachi, I think a lot of the questions kind of stemming right now are, okay, you didn't get much of a look in the NBA. Certainly there are other opportunities for him, but you had the opportunity to come back to Gonzaga. Felt like it was really 50-50 for a long time on whether he was going to do so. And I know you had a chance to kind of talk to him about that decision and why he ultimately chose to start his professional career at this point in his career.
Yeah. And, I was a little bit surprised by what he told me about that. I think most fans were under the impression he was 50-50, if not maybe 60-40, 70-30 on coming back to Gonzaga, with the 70% being coming back to school. Obviously, he had a great season last year, but maybe he would have a chance to kind of crack that starting rotation. I think a lot of fans would have been okay with him starting over other players in Gonzaga's rotation last year. But he chose to stay in the draft, and then he basically said, I knew the whole time that's what I wanted to do. I mean, everything runs its course. I've been a college basketball player for, I think, 5 years, maybe 6 years, including a redshirt year. But he had a great college career. He ended up at a place where no one thought he would be after starting his career, and ultimately kind of just climbed the ladder to Chattanooga and obviously to Gonzaga, and had a good year playing against some of the best competition in the country in the tournament and in some of those non-conference games. And he felt like he was at a place where he did everything he could, kind of like Drew Timme. He could come back for another year and put up solid numbers for a top 5, top 10 program in Gonzaga, but does it really benefit him a year from now when he's coming out and entering the draft? Is he going to be a much better prospect than he is right now? So I think for Malachi, he had a good situation in Portland. He obviously worked out for the Blazers, felt really good about that situation, and it does help that now Portland has a G League team. Yeah. So if he doesn't earn one of those 2-way contracts, he can just kind of stick around with the new G League team in Portland. And some of his best games as a college player were in Portland, were against Portland school. I don't know if that has anything to do with what he'll do at the next level, but I think it's a good place for him, and we'll kind of see what happens. He didn't get much run at the summer league. I didn't have a chance to see him play while I was down there because I believe he didn't play their first 3 games. Yeah. But a pretty competitive summer league team for the Blazers, and we'll kind of see what happens from here on out with Malachi. But I think he does have a chance to come in and be a great shooter in the NBA. He can defend 2 or 3 positions on the floor, kind of depending on the opposing team's 3 maybe, but he can definitely guard the 1 and the 2. A big body, strong body, and knows how to play. I mean, he was a 5-year player, scored close to 2,000 points as a college basketball player. So a lot of experience, and I have to think that some team in the NBA, whether it's Portland or someone else, will kind of value that, at least as a G League player or someone who can make a 2-way contract.
Well, new Zags fresh out of Gonzaga were not the only players participating in the NBA Summer League this year who are alumni. We're going to talk about Chet Holmgren, who was back in action, and he reminded a whole lot of people why he was the second player selected in that 2022 NBA draft. We're going to discuss his performance after a word from today's sponsor, LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's so easy to create a free job post, and then you just have to add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Plus, simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and ultimately hire. And let's be honest, the right team member can have a positive and measurable impact on your business. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, folks, want to thank all of you for making Locked On Zags your first listen or your first watch of the day. And a shout out, of course, to those everyday listeners who check us out on YouTube. Go hit that subscribe button if you have not done so yet. We got more fantastic stuff coming your way later this week, talking about what Gonzaga is going to do with those 3 open scholarships. And, of course, continuing to look at those NBA Zags as they look towards their professional careers, which is what we're doing here with the great Theo Lawson of the Spokesman-Review, talking about all 7 Zags who participated in Summer League. And today, or right now, we're talking about the unicorn, Chet Holmgren with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Chet, of course, missed his entire rookie season after suffering a foot injury, successfully defending LeBron James in the Jamal Crawford Pro-Am in Seattle last summer. Chet's back. Chet made it clear that he doesn't feel any ill effects from the foot injury. I believe his quote was, "If you wiped my memory clean, I wouldn't even know it happened except for the scar on my foot," which I thought was a hilarious quote because I pictured Chet Holmgren without his memory, wondering what the heck happened to his foot. Regardless, his quote makes sense when you look at his performance on the floor. He only played 2 games in the summer league because he didn't need to prove any more than that. 20.5 points per game, 9.5 boards, blocked 7 shots in those 2 games. I mean, Theo, he looked like the Chet Holmgren that we at Gonzaga are so familiar with, having seen him in his glorious freshman season in Spokane.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I could tell, Chet didn't really miss a beat. He looked like the same player I saw last year in summer league in Vegas when it really kind of came out and impressed everyone right off the bat, especially with that first game in Salt Lake where he had 6 or 7 blocks. He just wasn't timid, and that's kind of something you wonder about with someone who goes through a year-long rehab process. Is he going to close out as hard as he did before? Is he going to run down the floor to try to finish with the chase down blocks? Is he going to do stuff like that? Is he going to try to dunk? And he did everything and a little bit more than I think people thought. He wasn't scared, and he really kind of approached it the right way. Positive attitude, did everything that he's done. I mean, it was always the guy off the bench cheering his teammates on, and just kind of the same old Chet that we got to know for one season at Gonzaga and then last year at Summer League, which I think is about all OKC could have expected from him. They got a good glimpse of him. He played 2 games in Salt Lake and a couple more in Vegas, and I think he wound up with 14 blocks. I still think his ability to protect the rim is going to be his best asset, at least at the beginning of his NBA career. He obviously has shown the ability to shoot the 3. Didn't shoot the 3 very well in Summer League. I think he only made a couple of them and maybe shot somewhere around 20%, if that. But I really think the shot will come. I mean, we saw it at Gonzaga. He was close to a 40% 3-point shooter at Gonzaga. So that's something that probably still needs to get there for him. Obviously Summer League's a pretty small sample size, but did everything that you wanted him to do. I think a lot of the hype obviously around Summer League was Victor Wembanyama, and then Chet Holmgren comes in and he's playing well right off the bat. Victor struggles off the bat. So I really think that Rookie of the Year award is going to be a fun race because Chet is eligible for that award again. So we'll see if he can kind of challenge Victor and Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller for that award next year. But he kind of looks like someone who's been in an NBA weight room for a year or two. I think he's added 10 to 15 pounds. He doesn't look buff per se, but he looks a little bit stronger and
less skinny
than he did a year ago, which obviously everyone kind of expected that would happen. I think there were a lot of overreactions about his size, and you're like, hey, I mean, this is going to be his full-time job now. He has no choice but to bulk up a little bit, get stronger, and he's obviously someone who's pretty dedicated to the game and to his craft, and all he wants to do is play basketball. So he's on the right track, and obviously we're all going to be anticipating his real debut with the Thunder, who obviously look to be a pretty solid young team, and maybe not a championship contender quite yet, but I think it would be kind of disappointing at this rate if they didn't at least make a play-in game next year.
Chet, what's funny to me about Chet is like, yeah, he didn't shoot it particularly well, but he's such a threat to shoot. The amount of times that you watch highlight clip packages or ones that you put together, even of him attacking closeouts, because defenders know he can shoot that 3. So there's so many times that even when he's not knocking down the 3s, he's still such an offensive threat because he can put the ball on the deck. He can, obviously he can score around the rim. And so for me, like, Chet could go through prolonged 3-point shooting slumps in the NBA, and he will. Everybody does. And it just doesn't even feel like it's barely going to impact his game because he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands that he can do so many other things. And of course, watching Chet highlights and watching some of the games this year, I'm always reminded why he's so polarizing, because he can have plays where a defender or an offensive player drives into him and moves him like 4 feet, it looks like, just completely clears him out. And you're thinking, man, Chet just got bodied by that guy. And then the guy goes up for a reverse lay-in and Chet swats it back and out of bounds. And you're like, oh, well, never mind. He didn't. And that's what has always amazed me about Chet, is his ability to stay with the play, to keep his body within control. And yeah, he's not the most physically imposing guy, but his length, his ability to contort his body and use his size, like he so rarely gets beat. And watching highlights this year and watching the games, like that kind of still looked like the case. And there are still people out there who watch and see those few times when he does get moved by a guy who's got 40, 50, 70 pounds on him. And they think, oh, he's not going to be able to hack it. And I'm like, he's still making plays. Like he's still stopping people. It just doesn't feel to me like Chet is really in any serious danger of becoming a liability just because his strength is not going to be a factor. It's not going to be a big factor. It just feels like he's too good and too good at just using his size and his strength and his length to disrupt shots on that end of the floor.
Yeah, he just has such an impact. I mean, just even being on the floor, he doesn't even have to block shots. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, first at Gonzaga and then the last few weeks at Summer League, where an opposing player dribbles into the paint, sees him, and then dishes back out. So he just changes the way you play offense. He moves offenses around, he moves defenses around just by being a lob threat at the rim. So just having him out there, I mean, like every game you looked at his plus minus, and he was between like a plus 15 and a plus 20. And then kind of the next best OKC player might've been like a plus 2 or plus 5. And so he just is by far the most impactful player, at least on the Summer League court that I saw out there. And you know, like you mentioned, he doesn't have to be a big, strong guy. I mean, this is the NBA, this isn't the NFL. Obviously people are going to say, well, what's he going to do when he plays against Jokic or Embiid? Well, what does anyone do? Jokic ran through the entire league for an entire season, for really the last 10 seasons almost. So everyone struggles against those guys. I'm sure he's going to be no different, but he's still going to just provide that presence at the rim on both ends of the floor. And again, just being there changes the way you have to kind of approach offense. You just can't expect to make layups at the rim or try to dunk at the rim or kind of finish shots underneath, because he's going to be there. He's going to contest. And even if he's not blocking shots, he's altering the shots he takes. So we saw that at Gonzaga, even when he wasn't blocking more than 2 or 3 shots a game, you looked at the opponent's field goal percentage, and it was normally under 50 or under 40. So he just affects everything that happens out there, and just having him out there is better than not.
Want to switch over to talk about Filip Petrusev, another Zag big man who played in the Summer League this year, another guy who is going to be in the NBA this year, a guy who obviously left Gonzaga a little bit early, and perhaps in part because of the emergence of Drew Timme. It sure seemed like it was kind of a mutually beneficial thing for Petrusev to go back to Serbia and have a MVP season over there, while Drew Timme kind of emerged in his sophomore year and really kind of took the reins as a superstar for the Zags. And Petrusev ends up getting drafted by the 76ers, spends the next couple of years remaining overseas, and kind of came back this year saying, I'm not going back to Europe. Like, I'm coming back. And his agent came out and said, look, he's going to be here. Like, this is the plan. And you mentioned Nick Nurse coached that Summer League team, got some up close exposure to Petrusev and what he was capable of doing. And came out and said on Tyrese Maxey's podcast, hey, Filip Petrusev is going to be on the team. And then a few days later, he gets signed, and bam, he's here. And only 2 games for him, about 22 minutes per night. He looked really efficient, scored the basketball well, didn't shoot it all that well from beyond the arc. I'm not sure how much that's going to be a part of his game, but definitely looked the part of an NBA player this offseason, and certainly looks like a guy who earned that contract in Philadelphia.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like you mentioned, before he got to the U.S., his agent came out and said, hey, we're planning on Filip being a part of the Sixers, and if not, he's going to go back to his team in Serbia that he had a lot of success for playing last year. I mean, last Summer League, he just didn't have the same confidence and kind of optimism that he would make a roster spot, and came off a really kind of weird season in Turkey where he was playing and didn't really get along with the head coach there. The head coach said it was kind of a mistake to sign him. Filip didn't have great numbers there relative to his other seasons, and so he came to Vegas with kind of not a lot of confidence, and understandably so, and didn't play a lot, didn't play that well. Had a few okay games, but clearly wasn't someone who was ready to make a roster spot. And obviously the turnover in Philadelphia probably helped him a little bit. It's a bummer that the coach who drafted him is no longer there, but at the same time, you kind of get a fresh start with a new coach who obviously knows what he's doing. Nick Nurse is going to be I think a great hire for Philly. Had a lot of success in Toronto, and the NBA is so weird these days with the coaches that get fired and get hired. So you never know, but obviously having the chance to kind of connect with Nick Nurse in Salt Lake and meet him and kind of know what he's about. And Filip said he's already spent the last like 3 or 4 weeks just trying to kind of study Nick Nurse's tendencies, philosophies, and get to know what he's doing, because he's probably going to have to use those things because he will be in Philly this year, and expected that to be the case. And came to Summer League down about 10 pounds with his team in Serbia last year. He had a strength and conditioning coach who really really was heavy on the cardio side of things. So he said he didn't try to lose that weight, but he came to summer league 5 to 10 pounds slimmer, and you could really tell just he moved a lot better. And he was also playing the 4 a lot last year as opposed to the 5, where which he was playing in Turkey. So he was on the perimeter a lot more, and actually shot the 3 around 50% in some of the Serbian league games. I think shot it close to 40% in the Euro League, which is kind of the second best competition, second best league in the world after the NBA, according to most people. And so really has shown that he can shoot the 3. Didn't shoot it very well in summer league, made a few, but I think that is going to be something that he can step out and maybe hit 1 or 2 every now and then, and at least have a defender have to come out and guard him there. Don't leave him open. So if that's something he can add to his game, that's even more of a benefit. And interesting to see what happens in Philly and how they kind of use him with kind of the other big men they have there, and obviously learning from someone like Joel Embiid can't do any harm. So had a great summer league, was strong, was physical, and I really think his physicality is going to be something that he can use to his advantage. He talked to me about how the NBA isn't as physical as Europe, so he kind of comes to the NBA knowing how to be physical. That was something that helped him at Gonzaga, and he just seemed just talking to him last year, talking to him this year, he just seemed more upbeat, more in a positive mood. I think that a lot of that had to do with the last season he had in Serbia, where he won a Serbian League championship, played really well for a team in his hometown of Belgrade. So we'll kind of see how that confidence helps him. But obviously, signing a contract with the Sixers, that's what he's wanted to do since he got drafted, and obviously he's doing it. So we'll kind of see him get his chance. And I think the last 2 years in Europe really helped him develop and kind of get ready for this opportunity.
We're going to close out the show talking about a pair of Zag guards who participated in the Summer League, one who has a little bit more job security than the other. I want to lead with Joel Ayayi. Joel Ayayi, of course, played with the Memphis Grizzlies this Summer League season, has been kind of bouncing around a lot of different teams, a lot of different NBA organizations, a lot of different G League programs since he came out of Gonzaga, played three games with Memphis, only played about 14 minutes per night, looked decently productive, shot well from beyond the arc in a limited sample size. I know he also spent some time playing with various French national teams this summer as well. Really busy summer for him. I know, Theo, you just posted an article about him that I'll link to here in the show notes, a really nice piece about kind of what he's been up to these last few months. I'd love to kind of get a little recap of that because it's been a whirlwind, really couple of years for Joel, if we're being honest, but certainly a whirlwind summer for him right now as he tries to get back into the NBA.
Yeah. So Joel now has been with 5 different NBA teams in kind of different roles. I mean, he's played the last 3 summer leagues with different teams. Started with the Lakers, then last year was with the Hawks, and then now spent the last few weeks with the Grizzlies in Salt Lake and Vegas. He's also played with the Magic organization and kind of their G League team. They used to be the Lakeland. They're now the Osceola Magic. Spent last season with them. Put up good numbers. So pretty much classic Joel Ayayi numbers: 7 points. 5 rebounds, 4 assists, kind of deal. He's not going to wow you with his scoring, but he does a little bit of everything out there. Yeah. And then obviously the year before that was with the Washington Wizards and their G League team, the Capital City Go-Go. So he's had a lot of experiences with 5 different NBA teams, and the Grizzlies were one of the teams last year that kind of looked at him and he had the option to play with them last summer league and chose to play with the Hawks and then chose the Magic. But the Grizzlies reached back out again, and he obviously has a good friend who's played with the Grizzlies, Killian Tilly, his fellow countryman and former Gonzaga teammate. So he talked to Killian about kind of the opportunity to play for the Grizzlies, what to expect from their organization, and decided that would be a good fit in summer league. And like you mentioned, he's had a few different opportunities with the French national team this summer. Before summer league, he was playing with a French select team, kind of a younger group of guys. They played a couple of international friendly games against Armenia in Los Angeles. And then about 2 weeks after summer league, he was planning to go back to France to help the French national team prepare for the FIBA World Cup. So he was one of 5 players, along with Ousmane Deng, who's playing for the Thunder, who got invited to kind of help out that team. And I imagine if a slot opens up on that World Cup team, I have to think as one of those 5 guys, he would have a decent shot at earning a spot on the World Cup team. But for now, he's just going to help them practice. I believe their training camp starts on July 28th. So a pretty busy summer for Joel. He's also now a dad of a son who's less than a year old, Gabriel. So last time I saw him at summer league, he was about a few weeks away from his wife giving birth to their first child. So he's juggling the NBA duties with the international duties with fatherhood now. So He knows how
Good
to,
guy.
to change a diaper and dish out some assists. So he's kind of doing the same things he's always done. He's not going to wow you with any one thing really, but he's just consistent, knows how to play the game. Didn't have a lot of opportunities to play on that Grizzlies team, but he's still optimistic about his chances of earning a 2-way contract. And he's someone I can still see kind of playing for the next 4 or 5 years, kind of doing the same thing. He's always done. Maybe he does have to bounce around, but maybe if he gets an opportunity to play on a 2-way contract again, he can kind of impress in the NBA and maybe carve out a roster spot. But he's kind of doing the same thing and still thriving. And you talked about kind of the rise of French basketball right now with Victor and a few recent top 10 draft picks, Bilal Koulibaly. So it's a really good time to be a French basketball player. Exciting time. Maybe lessens his chance of making a Olympics roster or something going forward. But it's a good time to be Joel, and we'll see what happens as far as the Grizzlies signing him to a 2-way deal, or if he has a chance to play with another G League team.
I'll tell you what, being a daily Gonzaga content creator, it's really great, their international presence, because when we get into the doldrums of the offseason like we are right now, that tends to be when FIBA stuff picks up, and you always see so many Zags end up getting to represent their countries. You have Kelly Olynyk and Kevin Pangos, representing Canada. You have Joel representing France. Assumingly, when the Olympics come around, we might see Domantas Sabonis playing out there. There's various other players who get that opportunity. It's always kind of fun to see Gonzaga's international market kind of really expand when we get into that FIBA portion of the offseason. And Theo, I want to close out the show here talking about Andrew Nembhard, who could technically be on the Team Canada eventually. He did not get invited this time around. I don't know whether that was personal choice or not. But Andrew Nembhard was kind of we closed the show with him because ultimately his summer league performance, I think, is the least relevant in terms of his NBA future, because he didn't really need to be here. And there's a lot of sophomore players who after their first NBA season, who play very little in summer league because they just don't need to. And typically 2nd-round picks don't end up in that conversation, but also 2nd-round picks don't typically start 63 games in their rookie season. But Andrew Nembhard did. He had a tremendous rookie season, exceeded all expectations, I think, just by virtue of getting that opportunity with Indiana and really kind of grabbing the reins and having that dominant performance against the Golden State Warriors and having that game-winning shot against LeBron James and the Lakers, and should have been an all-rookie second teamer. He missed it by 1 vote last year, and saw some really good stuff from him in just his 2 games in the summer league. And I know Indiana acquired Bruce Brown from Denver and kind of shook some stuff up a little bit, and I would be surprised if he started as many games this year as he did last year, but it's pretty clear he's going to be a huge part of what Indiana does in year 2, and really exciting for him. And of course, really exciting for him to get an opportunity to watch his brother play at his alma mater next year for Gonzaga. Yeah.
Just going back to what you said about him and the Canadian national team, I actually had a chance to speak with Connor Griffin, the former Zag walk-on who was with the Nuggets last year. He's actually going to be helping out with the Canadian national team coming up during the World Cup, kind of doing some similar stuff that he's been doing with the Nuggets. And I asked him about Andrew, and he said Andrew definitely had an invite to play for the Canadian national team. Obviously, they wanted him really bad. Yeah. He decided not to play in the World Cup this year. I don't know if it's for just basketball reasons or if he had something on the schedule that he couldn't move, but he's not going to be playing with them. But I think definitely in the future you'll see him play with that really kind of stacked Canadian national team that has a really good chance to make some things happen with their kind of young roster. But he came back to summer league and really kind of looked like one of the veterans out there. He's only a 2nd-year player, but he really kind of looked like that last year too. I mean, that's just kind of the way he commands the floor. He's steady, he's calm, he's mature. He kind of plays the game at his own pace. You can't speed him up or slow him down. He's going to control the tempo no matter what's happening out there. So he just really looked like a veteran playing next to Benedict Mathurin. That's a really kind of unfair summer league tandem. Both of those guys played a lot. I think Benedict was a all rookie 1st-team player, if not 2nd-team player. So having 2 of the best rookies in the NBA on your summer league team is really nice. And obviously they didn't need to see much out of either of those 2 guys to know that they're going to be really kind of staples of the rotation next season. But had a chance to talk with Andrew for about 10-11 minutes after one of their practices down in Vegas, and just kind of talked about his last season. I asked him asked him about his welcome to the NBA moments and kind of guarding players like Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving and kind of some of the challenges that come with being a first year player playing a lot of minutes against these really loaded teams in the NBA. And so he had a really good experience. I asked him if he liked his game winner against the Lakers or his 30-point game against the Warriors more, and he said he preferred the game against the Warriors.
Yeah.
So he really got an opportunity to play a lot of minutes, play off the ball a lot next to Tyrese Halliburton, and so he's kind of going to have a different role. Like you mentioned, he's probably not going to start 63 of 75 games next year with Bruce Brown coming to Indiana, but it gives him a chance to kind of be the point guard of the second unit in Indiana, and I'm sure that Rick Carlisle feels really good about having Nembhard as your second unit point guard. So he's going to make a lot of things happen for that team. That they're going to be another team that expects to make kind of a playoff play-in push next year and kind of make it into the postseason. But really solid rookie season, and I think he's well ahead of where people expected him to be when he was drafted in the second round. Obviously, he was kind of more of a first round guy. Got paid first round money, so had a really good chance to kind of carve out a spot in the rotation, and played really well in summer league, and it was arguably their best player in summer league, if not one of the best players overall in summer league. I think if he had played 4 to 5 games, he would have been in the running for that MVP. That conversation, and if him and Mathurin had played all 5 games together, I have no doubt they probably win the summer league title. But you don't want to risk that. You saw enough of those guys, and I too was surprised that either of those guys made the summer league roster. But good chance for him to play a few more games in Vegas with kind of some of the new guys, and Jarris Walker, a few of their draft picks, and kind of build some chemistry there. So it'll be fun to kind of watch him play again this year. I'm sure he's going to play 70 to 80 games and kind of be someone who has to start a few games if some of their starters come out. I mean, I'm sure Tyrese Halliburton isn't going to start 82 games, so that'll be a chance for him to come in and kind of lead the starting rotation and play off the ball, play on the ball, do a little bit of everything, and really kind of be a factor on both ends of the floor in his second year.
Theo, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show to talk about these guys, to talk about your experience in the Summer League and your opportunities to speak with this guy. Sounds like we're going to have some more content coming out of the Summer League on the Spokesman-Review website and, of course, in the newspaper. So we'll be sure to share that. We'll link to some of the articles below here that we referenced in the show. And once again, thanks again, and looking forward to your coverage next year with the Zags as well.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, that's going to wrap us up for today. So we're going to put a bow on Summer League for right now, but we'll, of course, continue to talk about Pro Zags as we go further into the offseason, continue to talk about Gonzaga's open roster spots, what that might mean for Mark Few's team next year, all right here on the Locked On Zags podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube as well. Thank you all for listening, and as always, go Zags.